All right, okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our mixed game and educational streams. I'm here with my really good friend Zach Bright, who is so much more knowledgeable than me in politics and policy, and so he's going to be giving me a quick briefer on how filibusters work and just some other. I don't know exactly what's in store for me today, actually, if I'm honest with you. We are having some internet delay issues, so hopefully this isn't too painful in terms of delay. So, Zach, do you want to say hello really quick? If he can hear me. Well, you look super smiley. I can't hear you at all. Hold on.
Great introduction. I'm Zach.
There we go.
Yeah. Just a little background. Turn. In the air. You can't.
Audio's a little delayed, it seems like. I don't know
Do you
if
want me to turn off my video?
Well, here, why don't we try, can you try responding to what I'm saying right now?
Yeah, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, okay, so the delay's much better this way. I don't get to see your smiling face, which is a little sad. But last time
Yeah,
that's what...
I'm just like a voice of God.
Yeah. I mean, last time making eye contact with the person who was here last week was most of what tripped me up because I felt like I had to be engaged in the conversation. So maybe I'm gonna really kill it this time, playing the game. Yeah. So why don't we move into our gameplay, and I will bring up the game. If it will... There we go. Beautiful. All right. Zach, are you familiar at all with Hades?
I looked it up and I thought it was a video game, and that is the extent of my knowledge.
That's all we know, and that's all we need to know. I said this last time, I am terrible at video games. I am terrible at doing tests. So in general, this is sure to go really well. So whenever you want to get started, feel free.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm just here to talk about... preface. I gave Miranda 3 options. I said, I can tell you about... I can tell you about Luna, the K-pop group. Mm-hmm. I said, I can also tell you about Florida politics, or I can tell you about the filibuster, and she chose the filibuster. So... If you're not familiar with what a filibuster is, for those in our audience who might be like, hey, what is that? Basically, in the Senate, the United States Senate, if you want to have endless debate about something, you can kind of do that. And the idea is that people are always like, oh, the Senate's the cooling faucet of our legislative chambers, So the House, 435 members, and there's, a different number proportionate to the population of your state. So Miranda's from California. They have, I think 54 members of Congress from there.
We're a big state.
And I'm from, biggest state. I'm from Florida. I think there's like 27, maybe 29. I think it's 29 now. Don't quote me on it though.
All of our commenters.
That's the House.
I'm already hearing a lot of numbers, which worries me.
Yeah, well, just, keep them in the brain. But we're talking about the Senate. Senate is 2 for every state. So this is, AP God stuff. You're probably familiar. But the idea is the Senate's supposed to be, they really are a lot slower than the House. The House is very reactive compared to the Senate. So they might, for example, the House might pass a bill, but the Senate refuses to even take it up for debate. Or they might, threaten to filibuster something, and then it never gets voted on, and so that bill never becomes law because you need you need it to be voted on in both houses for a bill to become law. So, the filibuster historically isn't actually part of the Constitution. It's not like something that the founders were like, oh, we really need endless debate in this house. What happened was, I'm a little fuzzy on the details, so this is probably not going to show up in the quiz. So like...
You're not sure?
In the pre-written questions, I'm not... No, like... Yeah, so like Aaron Burr, I believe, it was Aaron Burr.
Yeah, sounds about right for that guy.
In New York. And we all hate him from Hamilton. But actually, I found him more compelling than Hamilton because I didn't like Lin-Manuel Miranda's performance as much. I think
you just hated Lin-Manuel Miranda is what it comes down to?
Say again?
You just hate Lin-Manuel Miranda and that's what it comes down to?
I don't hate him. I just think, I just think, great mind for coming up with Hamilton, but there could have been someone else who played
That's true. Better. It's a little weird to always star in everything you make,
Yeah, but I will say, if he created it, I guess you have the right to do that.
Sure.
You're doing great at this game, by the way.
I'm not. I really appreciate that.
I'm watching the stream.
I'm glad we have a viewer. That's nice.
It's me.
Yeah. We've got two, and it's the two of us.
Now we just have one.
Oh. Did you
leave?
I
don't know. I think we should keep talking about the filibuster then. I think they were like, okay.
It was too much Hamilton talk. I get it.
Right. No, totally. So, what's his face? Yeah, so Aaron Burr got rid of the Senate rule. And it's in the House, too, where this rule, I don't know what exactly it does, but generally what it does is it doesn't allow for endless debate. Debate has to come to an end at some point.
Okay.
But he got rid of the rule, and because of that, endless debate theoretically could happen. Now, 30 years passed, and nobody ever really, did that. Nobody ever, said, oh, I'm going to give a speech for 24 hours, and, because I really hate this bill and I don't want to vote on it. It was only until, I think it was pre-Civil War period.
Okay.
Where, I think that's the antebellum, that's what they call it. Where,
the secessionist
states. Yeah. John C. Calhoun.
Another winner.
I believe, they were really, they started to use it a little bit because they didn't like, the whole federal encroachment, and also they were slave owners. I don't know the specifics of that. I just know the generalities of that. So basically, the point is, it wasn't constitutionally creative. Then, they did it kind of after the fact. And then they started using it, decades later. It wasn't used immediately. Mm-hmm. Today, the filibuster is used a lot. I don't know the specific numbers, but I believe around half the times it's been used in history have happened within the most recent decade, I bet.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So it would be used very infrequently, historically. So one of the most famous uses of it, which was the longest ever filibuster, was by Strom Thurmond, who was, I think, the senator from South Carolina, and he was a Dixiecrat.
Okay.
And he filibustered the 1957 Civil Rights Act.
Oh, no.
For 24 hours. Right. So this was a tool employed by a lot of Southern Democrats who didn't like civil rights, and they used it to, what is the word? Stall legislation for civil rights. And he had to give a speech for 24 hours, and nobody helped him do that. But, and that might be probably what people are historically familiar with the filibuster in popular culture. I think there's a movie about it where some guy gives a filibuster for a really long time. In Parks and Rec, have you seen Parks and Rec?
Some of it, yeah.
Some of it. In one of the episodes, Leslie Knope filibusters.
Okay.
Or does the equivalent of whatever that is in, Pawnee. And she, stands and gives a speech, and she has to pee really bad, but she can't go pee. That's kind of what people are familiar with. But if you get enough senators to agree to have endless debate, you can kind of switch off. So it can be theoretical, because if you got, if you have one party and 30 senators are like, yeah, we'll filibuster this, it could happen endlessly. So they don't even bother bringing it up because they don't want to waste time.
Huh.
So, yeah. Now, there is a way to end a filibuster. That's called cloture. It's closure with a T. And I think the reason for that, this might not be true, but I think the reason for that is because I listened to a podcast about this like a week ago. Mm-hmm. But the old like font, like the script they would write,
yeah,
they would have like S's, but the S's would have like a T, like a dash through it, and it looked like a T, and it looked kind of weird. Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Right. I think they meant to say closure because that's a word, but then it like got transcribed as cloture.
Oh, interesting.
So we all know it as cloture. So, but anyway, so you can vote. I think it's just like voting for cloture, where if you get a certain number of senators to agree, then they'll stop debate. So previously, this used to be 2/3. So you would have to get 66 senators. Well, I guess they had less space back then, but you would have to get 2/3 of the Senate to vote and say, hey, we're tired of debate. We want to move on and just vote on this bill. Now it's 3/5. So you have to have 60 senators out of 100. But keep in mind, right now, our split in the Senate is 50-50. Or 48 Democrats, 2 independents caucusing with the Democrats, so 50 Democrats in the caucus, 50 Republicans, and then Kamala Harris, your former senator, she breaks the tie as the vice president. So, they have a very tiny majority, the Democrats do. Right. So, essentially, cloture is kind of impossible to reach because you don't have that 60 vote, and it's really hard to get members of the other party, if you're a Democrat, to vote with you, or vice versa if you're a Republican. And the filibuster is a tool used by the minority party. So previously, before this recent election, Republicans had the Senate, so Democrats would use that tool to stop bills that they didn't like. Mm-hmm. And now Republicans are expected to do the same thing. For example, Mitch McConnell, who's the Senate minority leader now, he filibustered like the formation of the new Senate, basically saying, hey, I'm not going to give you this new majority, to Chuck Schumer, the now majority leader. Mm-hmm. And he's been known to implement that tool a lot, also during Obama's administration, because from 2008 to 2014, the Senate was controlled by Democrats. Mm-hmm. So even though it was controlled by Democrats, for most of the time, they didn't have 60 senators caucusing with the Democrats, meaning they still had to deal with the filibuster.
Okay.
Do you follow everything so far?
I mean, yes, I've been desperately trying to stay alive at the same time, but I think I am following. And you said it was 60, right?
60. So 60, yeah, 3/5 is
60 now. It was something else before. It was more.
Yeah, it used to be 2/3, so that would be 66.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I do follow. I'm still trying to get over the font choice being the reason that it's called cloture. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I think that's just and we were all just like, okay, we'll call it cloture now.
Font does matter.
It does matter. It really does. So, yeah, filibuster is not part of the Constitution, but you can also, when you create the rules of this new Senate, and this happens every 2 years, because there's a new Senate formed, you can vote to get rid of the filibuster. It's never really been done before, as far as I know. But if you wanted to change the rules by which you do things, you can do that. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why you can't do that. And that's been something that's been talked about more frequently. Previously, it wasn't talked about because there was this norm of we're only going to use it in very rare instances. Mm-hmm. But because during the Obama administration, it was used a lot, and so Democrats have a very tiny majority.
Yeah.
Just to give you perspective on that, I think it was 7 Republican senators voted to convict Donald Trump. 57 out of 100. So if you can't even get 10 senators to vote to convict Donald Trump, how are you going to get them to vote for legislation that you want to push forward, So that's kind of the struggle that Democrats are kind of having. So a lot of them have been more frequently coming out on the side of getting rid of it. However, there are some Democrats who are like, no, I like this old rule. I'm more conservative, I'm more moderate, and I don't really want to get rid of it. I think it's important that we have this rule because structured debate is really important. Now, keep in mind, though, that they don't really have debate on these things because if the threat of a filibuster, is there, if you have this great Senate bill, but you can't get a filibuster-proof majority, if you can't get 60 people to, vote for it, then it can be filibustered, indefinitely, so they won't even bring it to the floor. Chuck Schumer or Mitch McConnell, they'll say, yeah, we're not going to really talk about it. So we won't even have the debate.
Oh, interesting. So it's not even like
a
problem with things being debated, it just like stops debate from happening in general.
Right, because they don't want to waste time with stuff that's going to be filibuster. They've done it, they brought up stuff up for the debate in the past, but then it gets endlessly filibustered and it never happens. And so it's not worthwhile. I think with the Sandy Hook shootings, I think that was filibuster. Like, Obama really pushed for, like, gun control legislation, but that never happened. And they really pushed hard for it, but I think the filibuster was the reason that never really happened. So there are still Democrats who are like, yeah, we want to keep this. And another reason for that is they say, oh, what if we lose our majority? What if we got, super bad election results in 2022, and we need this tool as a defensive mechanism if we're in the minority? And so that's another reason. So people who are like in favor of keeping the filibuster, like some Democrats include like Joe Manchin of West Virginia.
Okay.
He's from a state that Donald Trump won by like a ton of, double digits, 20% to 40%. I don't know. He won by a lot. But Joe Manchin is a Democrat from that state, which is very rare, especially today. So he says, no, I don't want to get rid of the filibuster. I am very, solid in my stance right now. Another one is Kirsten Sinema. She's a younger senator. She's from Arizona. Again, she is more like centrist. And she says, it's tradition. We don't want to get rid of it. And there might be a couple other Democrats who are kind of opposed to getting rid of it. And they might move if Republicans totally like stall them. If they can't get anything accomplished, then they'll say, hey, we'll change rules. But because there is that, like, these couple Democrats who say we don't want to get rid of them, that doesn't give Democrats a majority to change the rules to get rid of the filibuster. So that means the filibuster is likely here to stay at least for the next 2 years. So that's kind of the state of affairs there. So how do you get stuff passed, Like, for example, the stimulus that, Joe Biden is supposed to, push forward for the coronavirus, pandemic, how is he going to get that passed? Well, one way that you can kind of go around filibuster is through this thing called budget reconciliation. The specifics I don't fully understand, so you don't need to. But budget reconciliation is basically this process where I think it started, I want to say it started in like the 70s or something, where they kind of looked at the budget and they would vote on things that related to revenue and spending and fiscal stuff like that. And so, for example, Donald Trump's tax cuts were passed through budget reconciliation. So, those tax cuts were filibustered by Democrats, so they decided, hey, we're going to work around and we're going to do this through budget reconciliation. And the reason they can do that is because they only need a majority to do that, a simple majority, just 51 people, or, 50, and then the vice president steps in and breaks that tie in their favor. So they were able to pass those tax cuts. It's been used in the past as well. And Joe Biden is essentially doing that to pass this coronavirus stimulus package. He's just looking for a simple majority. It makes it a lot easier. However, this is not what budget reconciliation is designed for. So it's almost like if you want to eat cereal and you have a fork, and you don't have a spoon, so you use a fork.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can eat it, but that's not what it's meant for. You know? It's really roundabout, and then you don't get any milk. So yeah, and the other path is that budget reconciliation can only be used once a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you have 2 times to use it, and then you're going to get a whole new Congress because there's going to be elections. So he's going to use it this one time and pass this massive stimulus. That's his plan. And part of that it includes stuff like raising the minimum wage to $15. And that might actually get nixed or at least lowered because Joe Manchin, who, again, conservative Democrat, says, I don't want to raise the minimum wage to $15. That's not good for West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so some parts of it might not be able to pass even through budget reconciliation, but through that process, he can get a lot more money dedicated because it is fiscal stuff. However, let's say, they want to pass a new Civil Rights Act, or there's this thing, the Equality Act is this piece of legislation in the House that I think has passed. It passed in the last Congress, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's passed in this one, too. And it's supposed to guarantee, rights in the workplace and, make sure that LGBTQ people don't get discriminated against.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff can't pass through reconciliation because it's not budgetary.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with money or government spending, at least. Did you just die? No, you just you just won. Okay.
I, by the very skin of my teeth, survived, and I can guarantee that I will die pretty soon. This is genuinely the first time I've passed that boss doing this type of stream. I've passed it before, playing by myself, but
No, but you're doing 2 things at once.
Yeah. Okay. Whew, barely made it through. I do have a quick question about budget reconciliation, though.
Yeah.
So you said, there obviously you can only really do it once a year. Is there any amount of limitation to how many things you pass through budget reconciliation? If you were able to find a lot of legislation you wanted in that did have to do with budget, is there anything limiting how much you can pass?
I don't think the process is... Well, let me actually... There's a parliamentarian who votes or who decides, this fits under budget reconciliation, or this doesn't. So there's this person who does that. Now, if they decide, if they say, hey, $15 minimum wage, that doesn't really have to do so much with the budget. That's kind of a separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that should be included. What they do is say no. However, they could be overridden with a simple majority. If Democrats say, hey, actually, a $15 minimum wage is part of the budget, and it's really important that we pass it, we're just going to vote over you.
Yeah.
And with a simple majority, they can just ignore the parliamentarian. And nothing bad really happens. It just might, break the norm, but it's not illegal. So that's one way you might be limited, is if the parliamentarian does say, you can't do that, and you don't want to vote them down, or vote them, overrule them. Another way is, you also can't go over, a certain threshold of, whatever the limits of the budget are. I don't know the specifics of that either, so...
I don't expect you to know everything about it. I just was curious.
Yeah. And then also you're limited by who in your, party might want something. So Joe Manchin, for example, is limiting the stimulus by saying, I don't want a $15 minimum wage. I want a $10 or $11 one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But I think when you do it, you want to go big. You tend to go big because you can only really do it twice.
True.
But yeah, so that's the one work around. Yeah, I need to sum things up so far. Filibuster, old tool, but not constitutional, or not part of Constitution, I should say. And
I just want to say,
the policy making.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to say that the frame rate on the game has gone down so much. I had to open the game to have it. Hold on. I'm gonna close that out and see if that's making the difference. I think it might. But it was like almost impossible to survive just now. So I couldn't see what I was doing at all.
We have 4 viewers. You are lagging quite a bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, one of them is about to go away because I closed it on my laptop. But exciting. Hopefully the game runs okay now. It's not perfect, but it's better.
Good.
Oh, I'm still fighting. What? Oh no. I thought I was done. Okay. Sorry, continue with what you were saying.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. What was I saying? Yeah, okay, so, it's old, but it's not the oldest thing in the world. It's not part of the Constitution. It wasn't like this needs to be part of it. There's also this huge status quo bias, where things that have this isn't necessarily just the filibuster, but like things that exist today have a huge bias because, that's how things are. We should keep it that way. Mm-hmm. You can extend this to really anything ever. But in the case of the filibuster, people are like, oh, we've always done things this way. We shouldn't get rid of it because what's going to happen is that, one administration is going to pass a lot of these policies and then the next administration is going to get rid of all of those policies. And then the next one's going to reverse them. And then it's just going to be a back and forth. Nothing really gets solved. On the converse, however, currently, nothing's really getting solved either. We still don't have a stimulus package passed. Did you die?
I did die. It was really brutal. I had one life left, and the frame rate was really bad still, and so I was just pressing buttons wildly, and then I finally died. I don't even know what killed me, but that's okay.
That's tough.
That's what happens.
Yeah. Well, better luck next time.
Yeah, that's all right. We have time. We have time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we do.
It was also in the middle of you talking about like how things never change and people have a bias towards that. So it was a really dark moment on stream, I think, in general.
When you have a filibuster. So, like, the other governments, other democracies at least, like, let's say the UK, for example, they have a parliament. And it's run a little bit differently. They don't have, a limit like a filibuster. They have a lot of other differences too, but let's just, keep it to just the filibuster. A government that doesn't have a filibuster can pass things with a simple majority. And you don't have minoritarian politics where basically you have just a minority group, a handful of people saying, oh, we don't like this, so we're not going to let you do anything. And that really means that the United States government as like a policy creating institution is really like the worst institution to, like, not the worst, but like a very bad institution to do that thing. Going back to the whole eating cereal with the fork, like what if I said, oh, like, here's a piece of paper, you can eat your cereal with it. Like, that's not going to work out. Like, you can do it, but it's like, you're only going to get a couple bites, and then your cereal, like, the paper is going to get foggy, and it's just, so it's all a matter of, like, tools. And in this case, the tool is kind of broken because you have that filibuster there. And that's kind of maybe a personal opinion thing. Like, other people might tell you, oh, it is a good thing. And here's why, but you can have that guest on next week. But yeah, because a lot of opponents of the filibuster, again, getting on my soapbox, they will say, oh, we don't want the tyranny of the majority. We want to preserve the rights of the minority. And that sounds pretty great. If you're part of a minority group and you want to make sure that your rights aren't taken away, yeah, you might be like, yeah, okay, keep them. But, and I learned this from a class I took in the fall, Elites and Oligarchs, that initial, when that was, I don't know if it was put into the Constitution necessarily, or maybe the founders talked about, the rights of the minority. The minority at hand that they were talking about was not, marginalized people. It wasn't necessarily poor people, or it wasn't necessarily black people or brown people or people of color. They were talking about rich people in the minority. So that's what they meant when they wanted to secure the rights of the minority. And so when you have something like the filibuster, it really makes it easy for a small group of people who, don't reflect the population, public at large, it gives them outside control. And what that incentivizes them to do is to make it harder to vote. Because the more people that do vote, the less seats they would get and the less power they would have. It's almost a minoritarian government where a minority has a lot of the power because it can just stop everything. And it's politically rewarding for them to do that because, people always say, not people, but some people are very huge fans of bipartisanship. They want things passed with a couple Republican votes or a couple Democratic votes to make it seem like people agreed on something. The one thing I would say about a compromise is that a compromise sucks because both parties don't like it when they do come to a compromise.
No one's happy.
Right, exactly. No one's really happy with what happened. And the other thing I would say about bipartisanship, it's not really that common. It's only really in recent years that that's been a thing. And it's not, our system of government doesn't really incentivize people to work in a bipartisan way. Because let's say, you're Donald Trump and you want to pass things bipartisan. Let's just do Joe Biden. He's the president now. You're Joe Biden. You want to be bipartisan and you want to get, a couple Republicans to support your policies. Now, the Republican Party, and this is what they have done in the past, they might be like, we shouldn't work with him. And the reason we're not working with him is because then if they do work with him and he's able to pass, a stimulus and he's able to get 10 Republican votes, that makes his administration seem, like it's doing a good job. And it gives him a lot of political clout, which he can later, run for re-election and say, I did the stimulus, I got both sides of the aisle to work together. So they're incentivized, the Republicans are incentivized currently to resist and say, no, I will not work with you under any circumstances, because if I don't work with you, and if Joe Biden, isn't able to pass anything, then in, 4 years or 3 years, the next presidential election, he doesn't, they can attack him and they can say, hey, look, he's been president for 4 years, he's been in power, you gave him this chance and he wasn't able to do anything. And they can say that even though they were the ones who weren't working with them. And it does cut both ways. So both political parties are able to are incentivized to not work with the other, which sucks, in my humble opinion. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all I have to say on the filibuster as far as I can think about it.
That's all right. We're probably going to enter sudden death in a little bit anyway, so it's not a huge deal.
I can talk about my Night Lab project too.
Oh, that would be great, actually. I mean,
or we can just chat.
I'm not going to pressure you to talk about your Night Lab project if you don't want to, but I do find it interesting, and I wish I knew more about the serious stuff going on with the other groups.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so we're going to be making a zine about the intersection of, journalism and democracy, and how journalism can We have a mission statement that we wrote the other day. Let me see if I can find that. I don't remember exactly how it was phrased. But it was basically like, how can journalists make it so that people can, have democratic power and, like, use it effectively? Mm-hmm. And there's a couple, like, things that we talked about in the presentation, like the political hobbyist, which is this concept of a person who might follow a presidential election. They might have voted for a candidate and for president, but they might not have voted in a local election. Or they might have voted in a local election, but they don't really know what's going on. They don't do anything besides vote. Mm-hmm. This is a lot of college students. I'm like that right now because, honestly, we're busy and it makes sense. So it's, the person who created the term, Eitan Hirsch, he's a professor at Tufts. He's a little derogatory about it, where he's like, "Oh, everybody's just a political hobbyist," Yeah. Well, there's people who might, for example, a person who knows a lot about the filibuster, but doesn't go to, like, a local community event or, knock doors in their neighborhood. That's a political hobbyist. Mm-hmm. They know a lot about the process, but they don't know how to, like, actually use the power that they have. And so our question is kind of like, okay, like, can journalism do anything about that? Mm-hmm. Beyond an election, can we do anything about that? The conclusion we've reached is no.
Okay.
And Eitan Hirsch says this too. It is kind of up to an individual person to decide whether or not they really want to, like, volunteer in their community, support a candidate for office, run themselves, or get politically involved. That's really up to the person. And I would say political hobbyists know the tools to which they can kind of do that. They need to just take that first step themselves, and that's kind of a personal responsibility thing, and that's a little easy to defer to that, I'll admit. But what we can do, that doesn't mean journalism can do anything. What we can do, and this is kind of another portion of the population, is the 100 million people who didn't vote in 2016. Mm-hmm. And then that 100 million became 80 million in 2020, so progress, technically.
That's something.
How you're looking at it. But it's still, 80 million. So, journalists need to increase the access to their journalism. It's kind of like one of the conclusions we've reached.
Sure.
Like, me personally, is kind of, from my personal experience, I've never really seen a social media ad for, like, a local paper. Mm-hmm. I've never really had any interaction with that because I feel like a lot of legacy publications are really used to being the center of, like, where advertisers want to go because they get all the views and everybody's reading the paper. But people aren't really doing that anymore. And so they need to, like, establish themselves more as brands, and they need more funding too to do that. Like, it's not as profitable to, like, have ads and stuff. So, like, one of the things we recommend is, like, a nonprofit model, or if that doesn't work in your community, because that won't work everywhere, they can actually, like, advocate to be publicly funded by the government, which, might be like, hey, there's a conflict of interest there, right? Mm-hmm. And to that, I would say, PBS, that's funded by the government. PBS, I don't think I've never been like, PBS is a government shill, it's a propaganda machine.
We can't trust them.
Right, you can't trust. I'm trying to think. Are there a PBS show?
This is gonna be really embarrassing. Two journalism majors can't name one PBS program. Is NewsHour on PBS?
It's PBS Kids. Yeah. I would say PBS is publicly funded. And then I would also say, like, the BBC in the UK, that's publicly funded. Same kind of thing, they do journalism. So I would say, that could work on a lower level, especially in communities where it's not profitable. Mm-hmm. It's not as a business. The government should step in and help them out. And I'm sure they can find a way. Again, going back to the status quo bias, you might say, conflict of interest. But I would say, the way things are working out right now is kind of awful because local news is, like, decimated. And with me as a journalist, I don't even really read local news.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how important local news is, especially for, like, climate disaster. like on the ground reporting in Texas right now. It's like irreplaceable, honestly. So it's crazy to see how undervalued it is most of the time.
Yeah, like the Texas Tribune, I'm pretty sure that's nonprofit. They're doing, great work out there. Cal Matters from
Cal
California.
Matters, I'm a big fan of Cal Matters.
Yeah. So yeah, it's possible. I think so we really make recommendations. We don't like do anything. We just kind of wrote this all up, and we're gonna put it in a magazine and just make it look all nice and pretty, and then hopefully, and I think we're directing it toward regional publication. I mean, actually, if you have any thoughts on that, chime in. But
on getting it on publication, you said you were working on a zine, right?
Right, like we're
very
like on the audience, we should direct it to.
Oh, okay.
Because like we were thinking, we're gonna write for like these regional publications to say like, hey, you should start thinking about building your brand. You should start thinking about advertising on social media, especially where younger people are. And you should think about readers as, a bigger base than they actually are. So like an analog that I've kind of been able to draw is like an election. You have like people who are likely to vote, and you don't really have to worry about the people who are likely to vote. They're probably going to do that.
That's true.
You should think about the people who aren't voting, the 80 million people who aren't voting, and you should reach out to them. If you are running a campaign, if you're a candidate who really needs to win, you should do that. And for example, Stacey Abrams did that in 2018 when she ran for governor. And that's one of the reasons why Georgia turned blue in 2020 was because there was a lot of groundwork to really increase the base of voters.
It's very true.
And so the lesson you can learn there, but we're claiming you can learn there at least, is that you can increase your readership in that same way. You can reach out to people who don't really consume news and then say, hey, read us. We care about you. We're part of your community. We do good work, and it's important. And, they can read it too.
I'm gonna, while we're paused for a moment, I'm gonna move us into sudden death mode.
Okay.
Because I'm about to go back into that boss level again. But we can definitely keep chatting about, like, your potential audience and who you're hoping to get connected with. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a class right now, really, really cool class about Asian American activism, and in that class, our final project is making a zine, but we've mostly been looking at it within like an activism context, which isn't necessarily, it's not as, sorry, I already am distracted, not quite as, like formal publishing wise as I think what you're describing would be,
Well, yeah, we're not like publishing this and like making 10,000 copies or whatever. I think we're making like a website, like just a simple, very like Notion, I think is the software we're using. We're gonna like put it on there and then just like put the PDF up, and then Nightloud is gonna share it, I think. And I think that's the extent of like, I don't think it'll be printed. It'd be cool to have a printed copy of it.
Oh yeah, there's something so satisfying about a printed zine. But yeah, that sounds super cool.
Right.
And I think like the whole point of making zines is like to really make content approachable and available to the most people. So I think that's a really like interesting way to go about distributing something that's kind of like, it's pretty heady. I mean, obviously, you've been investing a ton of time into researching this stuff, so I think it's really cool that you're gonna put it in that format when it's all finished.
Thank you. I'm I'm excited for I have to do like all the design because
Ooh, yes.
I'm the only one who knows in design, but I don't even really know it. I just kind of know it.
I was gonna say I don't even really know in design, so good for you.
I just have it, and I've used it like a couple of times in high school. So
Nice.
we're gonna just see how that goes. But
I believe in you.
Okay, so do I go through the questions and then do you have a timer or do you just
No, it's for this. Last time I was like, what?
Yeah, I just said you're a little distracted right now.
I'm a little distracted. I do have a dedicated thing for the quiz. So once this is done, whether that means me dying or me beating this boss, we will go to the quiz. This is kind of just our. Oh, thank you. It's good because I'm a little less distracted right now because we're just talking about me playing instead of politics.
Yeah.
I really hope that.
What are you guys doing?
Huh?
I was just gonna ask, you guys are doing these live streams. Are you guys? Is there a final portion to it where you're gonna take all this stuff and be like, this is what we thought went well and what could be improved? I'm just curious about the direction you guys are.
True. Me too, honestly. So this whole quarter we've been trying to work towards this status on Twitch called affiliate. And right now the only thing that we're not reaching is followers. So, if any of our 3 viewers right now are moved to follow, I saw Zach followed really recently, which I appreciate. But once we get to 50 followers, we're gonna reach that goal of affiliate. The other stuff we had to do was having an average of 3 viewers on our streams, by the minute, and streaming on different days and streaming on for a certain amount of time, which we're already reaching all of that stuff, but that's been what we've been working towards, and once we accomplish that, I think is going to be the real litmus test with what we end up doing. But I think this is a channel that Night Lab intends to use after this quarter. This isn't the first quarter they've had the project, so I think in a sense, our entire goal is just to kind of build the platform a little bit. So, that's why I've been spending a lot of time making branding and, the animation for our channel. Patricia, who's one of my awesome group members, made music for our channel. So, there's a lot of little things that we've been working on. But it will be interesting once we hit that status, what our goals kind of transition towards, because we don't have something as concrete anymore to work towards.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been nice to kind of have a really concrete goal the whole time. Woo! Talking about.
Did you win?
I did beat it, just barely.
Okay, the stream's lagging a little bit. I wasn't sure. Okay. Congrats on your win.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I beat one level. Let's not be too big about it.
Yeah, no, but you still... The theory.
I appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to move us into quiz mode.
Alright.
So we can see just how little I absorb while I'm playing. Alright. Should we try having your video on again?
Yeah, I can try to do it and see how that goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. It's really laggy. It looks good right now.
Okay, you do see me?
Yes, there's a little lag, I think, but it's not nearly as bad as it was before. I'm sorry that you still can't see me. I don't know what's up with that. But alright. I'm gonna open up the first question. How many votes do you need to end a filibuster? Okay, I do know this. I was worried about the number question, and I do know this. It is now 60, right? It was the round number, and not 66 was the old number. 60 is the current number, right?
Yeah.
Whew, okay.
Yeah.
Spirits high with one. First question. I think last time I got my first question wrong, and it really sucked the life out of me moving forward with it. So, okay. Question 2. Name one Democrat. Oh no. Oh no. You brought his name up so many times, is the thing.
I gave you two, actually. But
You
yeah,
did.
got
And
one
I
up
can
a
tell you
lot.
one of them was from Arizona.
That's true.
I can't remember his state or his name, the other guy. Because his name came up so many times that I was like, I bet I need to know that. And I really didn't absorb any time. And I know it's not
do you
Chuck
want me to give you the
Schumer.
answer?
I know it's not Chuck Schumer. But the vibe of his name is Chuck Schumer, if that makes any sense. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay, it's Joe Manchin.
Okay, tell me that Joe Manchin and Chuck Schumer's names don't give you the exact same energy.
Similarity, different people, but okay, the name, sure.
Same
just
amount of
Chuck and
syllables
Joe.
in both. And also just
That's
like,
true.
I don't know, the vibe of it is identical to me.
Okay.
Still got it wrong. Is the filibuster part of the Constitution? No, it's not. It got added by Aaron Burr, because we talked about Hamilton for like a solid amount of time and lost a viewer. But it is not part of the Constitution, which means that we could get rid of it if we were able to get enough of a coalition behind it. Okay, two right. Question 4. What's one way you can avoid the filibuster? With budget reconciliation, is that I'm trying to
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, the other thing is you could have said
By just
like
not debating.
changing the rules. Like if you change the Senate rules, but yeah, budget reconciliation was like my intention behind the question. So
Okay.
you got it.
Cool. I'm answering as you intended. Okay. Who gave the longest ever filibuster in Senate history? Okay. I don't remember his name, but I remember us talking about the one senator who filibustered to prevent the Civil Rights Act. Is that the guy? Or is that just an
That's
example?
the guy.
That's the guy, okay. Again, absolutely don't know his name. 100% do not know.
Okay.
The vibe
His
I
name
get
was
from
Strom Thurmond.
Strom Thurmond.
Strom Thurmond.
With an S?
From South, yeah, Strom, like storm, but like reversed.
Okay. I mean, Storm Thurmond is such a powerful name that Strom Thurmond just is really dorky by comparison.
Yeah. He was incredibly racist.
Yeah, so I don't feel bad about bullying him, about cyberbullying him. He's also 100% dead, so I think it's fine.
Oh, he's dead. Fun fact, he was like 100, and he was still a senator.
I mean...
And he died.
He died while he was still in office?
Right, as like 100-year-old. That's crazy to me, isn't it?
I mean, like... I mean, you don't know this off the top of your head, but isn't the, like, average age in Senate just something astronomical? That's not, like, super surprising.
I want to say it's like 60.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little younger now that, like, John off. And, yeah, because he's real young. I don't know. But it is old. We do live in kind of a gerontocracy.
Yeah. I wonder what the average
so
age was.
I think that counts.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say I think that counts as like half a point.
Well, unfortunately for me, I have no system for half points on this.
Oh.
That's fine
well,
though. I think.
Yourself.
I mean, I in a sense am keeping the exact same average score as last time because I think I also got 3 last time. But you know, as we wrap up the stream, I definitely I feel like I've learned a ton today, like genuinely. And it's in such a different like world than the last one of these streams was, because the last one was like comic book history. So also something I knew nothing about, but the content it felt like I could absorb quicker. I was really afraid for this one, which is why I chose filibuster. I thought this will be a real test, and I do feel like I learned today. So I really want to thank you, Zach, for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. This was actually really fun.
Yeah, well, if you ever want to come back on, I'm sure you can teach me about K-pop. I promise it'll be more fun, the subject matter next time.
This is fun.
Okay.
But yeah, no, maybe next time.
Okay. Well,
right.
I want to give you this big gold star. I don't know if you have the stream open at all, but you get a gold star.
I think it's behind by like 10 seconds. So I'll wait for this.
The gold star will show up. And then I will give myself 3/5 of a gold star for my 3 out of 5.
But 3 out of 5 is the number of votes you need to get rid of the filibuster. So like, you know what I'm saying?
It's all coming together. I did it on purpose? Sure. I'll take it.
I see the stars now. Okay.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So I want to thank all 2 of our current viewers for joining us. I think both of them are on the stream right now. But I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we will catch you next time. Thank you for joining me, Zach.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh. I'm just leaving the